Back to 4,600,000,000 years ago, the Earth was not existing. It was only a circle of gas and dust in amazing scenery. Millions of years before that, the solar system was a cloud of dust and gas, known as a solar nebula. Resulting from the Big Bang, gravity collapsed the material in on itself as it began to spin, forming the Sun in the center of the nebula with time. The Earth formed from dust and rocks that gathered by gravity. Going a few years ahead, specifically 4,540,000,000 years, Earth was formed, but in a state that are far from the state we see today. Instead of the landscape, there were rivers of fire and molten lava. The temperature on Earth's surface was 4,700 degrees Celsius, that's 8,500 Fahrenheit. Instead of air, it was hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and water vapor. Instead of solid Earth, molten oceans occupied the entire planet. There was continuous bombardment of our planet from large asteroids, until the shape of the Earth turned as if it was in its final stages before the annihilation. Several million years later, the collision of Earth with a young planet called Theia caused millions of tons of rocks and dust flew out. And as a result of gravity, these rocks caused the birth of our moon. At that time the day consisted of only 6 hours, because the Earth was spinning around itself very fast. In the period between 4,100,000,000 years to 3,800,000,000 years, the Earth was subjected to a continuous bombardment of several asteroids and meteorites left over from the debris of the solar system. Scientists believe that it was the reason for the formation of the oceans on Earth, as these asteroids and meteorites supplied the Earth with huge amounts of moisture because they were containing crystals of water. This continuous bombardment for millions of years caused pools of water to spread, which helped in the formation of the Earth's crust and turned half of the Earth into oceans. 3,800,000,000 years ago, the bombardment phase of the Earth ended and its temperature began to gradually decrease. However, life is still not possible on the surface of the planet due to the lack of oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. Basically, the Earth did not have an atmosphere to protect it from ultraviolet rays. But one of the paradoxical things is that there are several fossils have been discovered dating back 3,500,000,000 years, meaning that there may have been a form of life at that time. Between 3,200,000,000 years to 2,800,000,000 years ago, the surface of the Earth was fully covered by shallow oceans, with temperatures ranging from 55 to 88 degrees Celsius. This allowed some single-celled microorganisms to establish life in these harsh and hot weather conditions. At that time, the day began to lengthen more and more, reaching the period 2,500,000,000 years ago, when the first land continent was formed on Earth, the continent of Canada, which was formed from the gathering of small islands resulting from the gathering of molten rocks from the interior of the Earth over millions of years. By quickly running through history, the day became 16 hours long and complex organisms began to appear and multiply. Over time, approximately 750 million years ago, the great continent of Rodinia was formed. And after a period of time the continent of Pangaea, our Earth 650 million years ago, was a ball of snow. It was literally covered with snow. This is due to the geological activity that produced huge amounts of volcanoes, which came out with carbon dioxide and formed acid rain. Rains were absorbed into the rocks and with it carbon dioxide in large quantities. This caused the shortage of this gas from the atmosphere, which lost its ability to maintain the temperature of the Sun. And over a course of thousands of years, the temperature of the Earth dropped to around -50 degrees Celsius. The equator was as cold as Antarctica, But under that layer of ice, the planet was keeping its high temperature. Consequently, the inner planet began to overcome the ice layer in succession, until it was able to melt it completely. That generated huge amounts of oxygen, which resulted from the interaction of ultraviolet rays with ice particles. And this changed the shape of our planet forever. About 541 million years ago, what is known as the Cambrian explosion occurred, in which the Earth's temperature stabilized at 30 degrees Celsius. The concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere became standard, which helped the sudden emergence of many multicellular organisms. This negates the rule on which the theory of evolution is based, which states that it is impossible for man to appear as a rational being with a complex composition suddenly without development. These organisms continued to inhabit the Earth, and evolve until some of them developed their exoskeleton, to protect themselves from predation. Over time, the day became 22 hours, and plants and arthropods began to appear and be active in the ground strongly. 419 million years ago, insects appeared for the first time, and remained semi-dominant on life on the surface of the planet for 300 million years. This period was described by many scholars, including the scientist Frederick Rich. The land was like shallow swamps filled with giant plants and flying insects. In the period before 252 million years in the Permian, Triassic, the Great Death or the end Permian extinction occurred. The scientific consensus is that the causes of extinction were high temperatures and widespread oceanic anoxia and ocean acidification, due to the large amounts of carbon dioxide that were emitted by the eruption of the Siberian traps. Most of the creatures on Earth became extinct, with 96% of marine organisms and 73% of terrestrial vertebrates. During the extinction, the sun's rays were largely obscured from the Earth, and the Earth's atmosphere became ready to kill any living creature inside it. Around 230 million years ago, dinosaurs appeared and replaced the previous creatures. At approximately 175 million years ago, the continent of Pangaea, that was stretching from pool to pool, began to disintegrate, forming the Atlantic Ocean and other oceans alongside the continents that we know in its current form. After about 125 million years, mammals began to appear, especially after the extinction of the dinosaurs, which happened due to attack of an asteroid that wiped out most of the life on the planet. Millions of years later, the Earth was changing and preparing for a creature that would populate it. The length of the day became 24 hours, and the temperature of the Earth stabilized at 24 degrees Celsius on average, until about 300,000 years ago, when the man began to inhabit the Earth and live in it, and succeeded in cultivating and exploring the Earth, from its east to its west. In the end, the story of the Earth is not over yet. There is a lot going on. Each of us will fulfill the role for which we were created.